completed their work and were anxious to get home, and so the ship blasted off without him. All this had passed kaleidoscopically in Tyndall's mind as he lay on the couch in his luxurious prison, too numb to weep or even curse. His reverie was broken by the clicking of the lock, and he raised up to see the door opening. An Arrillian servant stood there, his silver hair done up in the complicated style which denoted male house servants. He was unarmed. The houseman smiled, roared in imitation of a rocket, made a swooping gesture with one hand to indicate the departing ship, then pointed at Tyndall and at the open door. The servant bowed and departed, leaving the door slightly ajar. Now that the ship was gone, he was free to leave his room. Tyndall stepped cautiously out of the room and found himself in a long hall with many doors opening from it, on either side, much like a hotel corridor. One end of the hall seemed to open out onto a garden, and he started in that direction. The doorway opened out into a patio which overlooked a vast and perfectly tended garden. The verdant perfection of the scene was marred only by one of the bugs, sunning itself and gnawing on the stem of a flower. Tyndall was impressed again with the repulsive ugliness of the thing. This one was the size of a small adult human, and even vaguely human in outline, although the brownish armoured body was still more suggestive of a big bug than anything else known to him. There were even rudimentary wings furled close to the curving back, and the underside was a dirty striped grey. Tyndall shuddered, wondering why the Arrillians, who so loved to surround themselves with beauty, should choose so horrendous a creature as the object of their worship or protection. He heard running footsteps behind him, and turned to see the Arrillian houseman, breathless, with an expression of greatest concern on his face. The servant bowed respectfully before Tyndall, then gestured at the garden, shook his head vigorously from side to side, and tugged at the earthman's sleeve. "Forbidden territory, eh? OK, old fellow, what now?" The servant motioned for Tyndall to follow him, and ushered him down the hall from whence he had just come, and into another of the rooms opening off from it. The very old man reclining upon the low, Roman-like couch Tyndall recognised at once as his host, the Rhal of Arrill. The Rhal touched the fingertips of both hands to his forehead in the Arrillian gesture of greeting, and Tyndall did the same. He noticed several male Arrillians standing near the back of the room, though the servant had bowed and retired. "Well, Tyndall, how do you enjoy the hospitality of Arrill?" He, of course, gave the native pronunciation to the name, which was almost Teutonic in sound and unpronounceable for Tyndall, because of the sound given to the double aspirate, for which he knew no equivalent. "Your English, Deb Rhal, has improved greatly since our last meeting," commented Tyndall guardedly, using the Arrillian prefix of extreme respect. The old man smiled. "Your friends were kind enough to lend me books, and also the little grooved discs that make voice." He gestured towards an old-fashioned wind-up type phonograph, which Tyndall recognised at once as being standard aboard interstellar vessels, and for just such a purpose. The Rhal continued: "For teaching English, very fine. How are you enjoying our hospitality, I ask again?" Tyndall was stuck on Arrill, and he knew it. There was no need to cook his own goose by being deliberately offensive. "I appreciate the hospitality of Arrill. I express my thanks for the consideration of my hosts, but if I may ask a question?" "Yes?" "What, in the wisdom of the Deb Rhal, is the reason for my detainment?" "To answer that, Tyndall, I must tell you something of the past of Arrill, and of her destiny." At these words the other Arrillians in the room drew closer, and the Rhal motioned them to a couch at his feet, and nodded toward Tyndall, requesting that he join them. Tyndall noticed that the others were gazing up into the old man's face with an expression of raptness, even of reverence. He knew that the Rhal did not possess an especially exalted position politically, even though he was head of the city. He guessed, therefore, that the Rhal must be the religious leader of Arrill as well. The Rhal began, intoning the words as though he were reciting a ritual. "There was a time, many thousands of Khreelas ago, when the kingdom of Arrill was not one small city as you see it now, but a mighty empire, girdling the world in her vastness. But the people of Ahhreel had become evil in their ways, and her cities were black with sin. It was then that Sheev himself left his kingdom in paradise and appeared to the people of Ahhreel, and he told them that he was displeased, and that bad times would fall upon Ahhreel, and that her people would dwindle in number and become exceedingly few, and the jungle would reclaim her emptied cities. One city, and only one, would survive and prosper, and the people of that city would be given the chance to redeem Ahhreel and remove the heavy hand of Sheev's terrible punishment. All this came to pass, and in the dark Khreelas that followed, all of Ahhreel vanished except this city. Now, for many thousands of Khreelas, the people in this city have striven to redeem Ahhreel by obeying the sacred laws of Sheev. Sheev had promised that when the punishment was ended he would send a sign, and his sign would be that a great silver shell should fall from the heavens, and within should be Sheev's own emissary, who must wed the ranking priestess of Sheev, establishing again the rapport between the kingdom of paradise and the world of Ahhreel. When the Rhal had finished, the other Arrillians in the room fastened the same look of reverence upon Tyndall which they had formerly reserved for the Rhal. Tyndall chose his words carefully. "But there were many aboard my vessel. Why did you, Dheb Rhal, select me as the emissary of Sheev?" "Sheev selected you. I recognized you, as of all your companions, you and you alone have the sun-coloured hair, which is the sacred colour of Sheev." Tyndall was able to question the Rhal almost coolly. The trap was already sprung, the ship was gone. Now he only wanted to know the how and the why. An accident of pigmentation, only, that had brought him to this. Sun-coloured hair. "But, Dheb Rhal, did my friends and I not often tell you of ourselves, of the place from which we came? A world like your own." The old man smiled. "Do not think me naive, Tyndall. I am quite aware that you are but a man from another world, although quite an incredible world it must be. I know also that you were, until this hour, unaware of your destiny. I knew that when my priest reported that you ignored the ritual of the time, until literally forced to obey. That is why we had to use devious means to make certain that your companions would not prevent the fulfillment of the prophecy. Now, of course, you understand. I do not think the priestess Lhyreesa will make you unhappy, Tyndall." This was not Earth, and these people were not Earthmen. The thought now did not bring the bitter pain it had at first, right after the ship left. Earth already was becoming hazy in Tyndall's mind, a lovely globe of green somewhere far, and home once, a long time ago. No, the Arrillians were not Earthmen, but they were human, and an attractive, gracious race. Life would not be bad among the Arrillians, especially as the espoused of the ranking priestess of Arrill. Tyndall fingered the rich material of his Arrillian robe. He thought of the food, the wine, the servants. No, he decided, not bad at all. One thing, though, this priestess, Lhyreesa. "I have, then, but one request to make. Dheb Rhal, I would like to see the priestess Lhyreesa." The old man almost chuckled. "That is understandable, Tyndall, but it is not yet the time." Tyndall, revelling in the strength of his position, grew bolder. "I would like very much, Dheb Rhal, to see her now." The Rhal's face darkened. "Very well, Tyndall, but I warn you, do not enter the grove. There is death there, death that even I am powerless to prevent. The Guardians will not harm her, but any stranger will not live many minutes in the grove." "I will not enter, Dheb Rhal." "Tyndall, the time is very soon, possibly this very hour. Will you not wait?" "I prefer not to wait, Dheb Rhal." The Rhal gestured to a young Arrillian. "Beheel, show Tyndall to the grove of the Princess Lhyreesa." The younger man protested. "But, Dheb Rhal, so near the time, what if—" "Do as I command," snapped the Rhal. Beheel turned silently, motioning for Tyndall to follow. The young Arrillian led Tyndall the length of the corridor, back to the patio he had stepped onto by mistake earlier in the day. Beheel stepped respectfully aside. Tyndall looked out into the garden. The sun was beginning to set, the long shadows stretched across the dim recesses of tropic greenery. The huge insect-like thing was still there, stretched out in a narrow strip of sunlight, catching the last failing waves of warmth from the sinking sun. Tyndall turned to the Arrillian. "Where might I find the Princess Lhyreesa?" he asked. "There, Dheb Tyn Dall." "I see no one. Where do you say?" Bheel pointed. "There, Dheb Tyn Dall. Where I point, you see the Priestess Lhyreesa taking the late afternoon sun. Unless your